Coach Miller with Wyoming Football is joining us today. He is our first football program to be featured on My Momentum Connect. Has had some awesome feedback from Coach Miller just ahead of recording this conversation. So we're super excited to have him on board. Super excited to show the young strength coach community what's going on with you guys out in Wyoming. So first and foremost, Coach, please go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your developmental journey, maybe some of the internship opportunities that you had, and maybe point to a couple of mentors you had along the way that really helped you get your start in the profession.
Sure. I'm Carl Miller. I've been here for 2 years with the University of Wyoming with the football program. I'm the Associate Director of Sports Performance here. Also in charge of the internship curriculum. Prior to being here, I was at Colorado State for 1 season back in 2019. And then before that, I was at Mercer University in Macon, Georgia for 6 years. During my time there, I started as an intern, and eventually by the end, I was the director of the department. And then prior to that, I had 2 internships. One was at Wayne State University up in Detroit, Michigan. And then the other was at Eastern Michigan University, where I graduated from. Mentors, I would say, one of the big ones is my guy, Joey Garasio. He's down at FAU. I worked with him last, I guess it was 2 seasons ago now at Colorado State when he brought me on. Back in 2014, he had me come down to Northwestern State in Louisiana to be a GA. As things kind of shook out in this profession, right time, right place. He was on his way out. I was on my way back to Mercer. So we didn't get to work a whole lot together, but we kept that connection. So I would say that's one of my mentors, good friends in the field. And then, I would say Blair Wagner. Blair Wagner was the head strength coach at Eastern Michigan when I was there. That guy taught me a lot about, what it takes to succeed in this field. So those 2 guys for sure.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And hey, it's like the kind of fairy tale story, huh? Going from intern coach, moving all the way to director.
Oh, it's wild. It's wild. Couldn't have written it up. Couldn't have dreamed of it. It just right time, right place, right situation.
Right. And that was over a period of how many years? From when you started as an intern to when you got to director? What was that, 5-6 years?
Shoot. So I started as an intern back in 2013. I was assistant director in 2014. In 2017, I was put in charge of the football program. I was still assistant director, but I was director of football strength. And then in 2018, they finally put me in charge of the entire department. So it was a lot of stuff going on, a lot of moving pieces.
For sure, moving pieces and growth, right? That's when you get faced with those. You say like right place, right time, and we've had that a number of times on this My Momentum Connect recording session. Is that often right time, right place is really, it's kind of underpinned by stepping over the line into discomfort and just being ready to grow and being ready to make some opportunity for yourself.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. No doubt about it. I remember when I first took the job at the full-time job at Mercer, I had just left to go be a GA somewhere, and then I got offered a full-time position. And in my head, I'm like, well, I'm not even ready for this. But, I kind of learned on the job and figured it out, and things worked out. But, are you ever really ready for that next step? I don't know.
Exactly. We're speaking with Coach Mac yesterday, and we talked about how you're never going to be at a place where you have absolute knowledge of everything and you have all the answers to all the questions that could possibly come. But as long as you have the passion that underpins the knowledge and you're making that 1 millimeter of progress every single day, then you're going to be okay, right? And as long as you surround yourself with people that maybe fill the bucket in different ways to you, then you're going to be okay and you're going to continue to make progress. So that's awesome. That's really, really cool to hear. Really cool to hear. So in terms of the intern coaches, obviously you've been the internship coordinator there, the intern coaches that you bring on to work with your football program. Can you tell us a little bit about their responsibilities, what they might expect if they come out to Laramie with you guys, what the daily schedule might look like for them?
Yeah, for sure. First and foremost, I want to say that interns are extremely important to our program. Could we get it done without them? Yes. But it would be a heck of a lot harder to get, our day-to-day job done without those interns. They help in so many ways, whether it's, setup breakdown, taking a few athletes here or there, just making sure the day runs smoothly. So those are, really important positions, regardless of, hey, it's unpaid. I don't want people to get hung up on that. And, when I was an intern, that was something I had to constantly remind myself of is, it's unpaid, got to get through this, but this is the best time of your life, really. This is the best time of your career, is the beginning. Um, when you don't have all these obligations and you don't have a family and you don't have all these extra worries. So I want to say that. But so our interns come out here on a day-to-day basis. I'd say Monday through Friday in the off season, it's about 4:30 in the morning until about 6 o'clock at night. We try to get our interns integrated into the program immediately. So our first week, once we get them here to campus, we sit down, we go through an orientation where we take our interns through every single detail of our program, from the running progression, the lifting progression, how things are taught, things to look for, common cues, all of those things. So we have a very in-depth orientation to get these kids integrated into it. And then, we really want this to be a hands-on situation. We want it to be a hands-on experience, and we want to send interns out of this program prepared for that next step, that next job, whether it's a paid internship, an assistant position, a GA, whatever it may be. We want them to be ready to coach on the floor, on the field, and really be able to attack that next task that they're set up with. The way we do that, after orientation, during lifts, during runs, they'll be sort of assigned to a certain coach or a certain group of racks initially, where they'll assist that coach, or they'll assist in that session, whether it's on the field or in the weight room. As they gain our trust, as they get more comfortable with those athletes, hopefully we'll be able to turn over some of those athletes to them. Hopefully we'll be able to give them a rack or two in the weight room, maybe watch a station on the field. That's the ideal situation, but we're going to give them what we think they can handle. So it's really going to be, you're going to get out what you put into it. Let's see, what else? As with any internship, there's going to be a lot of setup, breakdown. That's just part of the deal. There's going to be some grunt work. But we really try to, like I said, set these kids up for success.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Now, you talked about how intern coaches are part of the fabric of what makes Wyoming football run, right? And I think all of us as internship coordinators, share that similar opinion, in that, yes, they may not have the technical expertise to be able to take that session by themselves, or understand why one thing is being progressed into the next, or regressed if something goes south. But the best intern coaches, certainly that I've ever had, have been those ones whereby if they have a day where they're sick or they're ill, you notice it, because they're not there to be able to be proactive, to set up the room ahead of time, to break down things, to take care of the things that need to be done surrounding the session. So a phrase I've heard many times is you got to make the big time where you're at. So, how are you going to add value? Because we as internship coordinators, of course, will try to add value to the young coaches, but flipping that coin around, when you're young as a coach, you've got to figure out a way to add value outside of just the coaching, and try and become, invaluable to the coaches that are around you. So that's really important. That's great. So riffing off of that a little bit more in terms of how you're developing coaches, obviously, I know you have a number of different technologies there, including Tendo units, the Fusion Sport timing gates, all those kinds of things. In terms of your actual curriculum for developing coaches and helping them to understand what it means to be a strength conditioning coach, could you touch on maybe one or two of the things that you might have a developmental session on with your intern coaches, and what kind of value they might gain out of those sessions?
Yeah. So our curriculum, it's when I came up, I didn't have an internship curriculum. I didn't have somebody saying, here, read this, or hey, watch this video and we'll talk about it next week. I had somebody say, hey, if you want to know, ask questions. Okay. So I kind of pieced together some things that I thought would benefit the intern coach. And like I've stated numerous times, set them up for that next step. So once a week, we'll sit down as an intern staff, myself, and then some of our assistant strength coaches as well will sit down and we'll chop it up on a specific topic. Typically, I'll give them a reading or a series of videos to watch, whether it's Olympic lifting technique, and we'll go through some Cal strength videos. How to clean, how to snatch, how to jerk. Speed training. We'll go over some Charlie Francis stuff.
As you've mentioned, nowadays so many resources available to us online that coaches out there are being generous with creating these free resources on YouTube, various different handouts about the progressions that they've used that they've seen have worked well. So it's cool for you to be able to point to other coaches, because I think that's one thing that I've realized over time now looking back, is that you start to, nothing that we create is really ever new. It's always kind of pieced together in some way, shape, or form, whether it's just like a little bit of influence from somebody and some from somebody else, or it's just the whole set of you going to a conference and somebody presenting on something, you think, that's awesome. There's nothing about that I think I need to change to be able to implement it into my session. And so I think these young coaches really benefit from seeing like where these things come from, hearing the opinions of others. And maybe sometimes it's like saying, hey, this is what we do, but there are other schools of thought out there as to how you might be able to achieve the same outcome doing it a different way. So, don't just necessarily take our way as being, the only way to do it, because there's multiple different ways, and it might depend on the context of the athletes you're working with or their developmental age. If we've got somebody who's looking to get into high school strength conditioning, things might not be appropriate. So it's cool that you kind of show them those different coaches and what they're doing out there in the field. So that's awesome. Good. Now, you've touched on it a couple of times here, Coach Miller, is that we obviously want our young coaches to move on, right? They can't stay with us forever. And so what I'd like you to do now is just tell us about maybe one or two coaches that have passed through your program who have really gone on to do well. Potentially, maybe they stayed with you and they've been elevated to position just like you, or potentially they moved on somewhere else to a different university or maybe into the NFL or something. But tell us a little bit about a successful intern coach, maybe what they were like when they were with you and where they're at now.
Yeah. So, the first guy that comes to mind is Gavin Rush. So Gavin is actually an assistant on staff with us now. He started as an intern. Prior to that, he was an offensive lineman for us. Once the season got canceled in 2020, he decided to move on. He kind of already had his mind made up what he wanted to do, so he decided to intern with us. It's kind of a cool story, and I don't think he'll mind me telling you this, but when he first started, he said the right things. I knew he was a smart kid, but the urgency and the attention to detail, some of those things just weren't there. I don't think he necessarily understood what he was getting himself into. I don't know that he understood what it took to become a strength coach. But through, the months working with us, we had to sit down, have some real discussions, have some real talks that, aren't always easy. But he took that constructive criticism and he really flourished. He turned into a coach that we could count on. We had some movement on our staff. So we actually lost 2 of our full-time staff members this past spring. The first one, he kind of took over in the meantime to kind of hold that spot and take care of the linebackers, the fullbacks that full-time coach worked with. And then, once that new coach came in, he shifted back to his intern role. And then once that second position came open, well, that first time around, that was kind of his audition. And, we couldn't think of a better guy to take over the job. So, he was detail-oriented, driven. He obviously could connect with the players, being a former player and having a relationship with those guys already. But to me, the thing that made him stand out was his ability to take constructive criticism and turn what some people could see as a negative into a positive.
Yeah. You know, what you said there is something that I think a lot of young coaches, whether they come into a program as an intern coach, understanding that they know they want to be a strength conditioning coach, or maybe it's their first developmental opportunity, and they're just trying to figure out, is this for me? And is this something I want to do? One thing I think a lot of younger coaches nowadays appreciate is the real talk. You know, I don't think they get that enough. I don't think they get the listen, you need to sit down and we're going to have a man-to-man conversation about where you do well, but importantly where you do poorly and how you could do better. And I think a lot of kids don't get that nowadays. So having those conversations could change that trajectory for that individual. And just like he has with Coach Rush, you know, that's clearly happened.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of reminds me, back when I was at Eastern Michigan with Blair Wagner, he told me, listen, I'm going to try to make you quit. He told me that in the meeting I had with him before I started. He said, I'm going to try to make you quit because I want you to find out if you really want to be a strength and conditioning coach. If you want to be one, I want you to know that from the jump and not find out in, 6 months, 8 months, next year till you feel like you've wasted time and, oh, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. So, I really respected that. And that's kind of what I kind of relate those real conversations to. You know, if you really want to be a strength conditioning coach, you're going to have that conversation, and you know what, you're going to get better from it. If you don't want to be a strength conditioning coach, you may have that conversation, and that may help you realize, hey, this isn't for me.
Mhm. Right. And I think we all appreciate, having had a number of years under our belt now, we all appreciate the rigors and demands of the lifestyle of being a strength conditioning coach, when that comes to obviously family, friends, social life, but also the pressure that you're under, particularly in a football setting where winning is particularly important because your job could depend on it. And we see that every year, and it's something that we can't hide from. Will it change over time? We hope so. But at the current time, we know that it's a super high pressure environment. So in terms of like all these moving pieces in a football program, with all the different position groups, all the different position coaches, presumably coming in through the weight room and checking in on the guys, what kinds of personalities are you typically looking for in young coaches who want to come and affiliate themselves with your program? How would you like to see a young coach come to your program? What kind of personality would they have?
I don't know that I necessarily have a personality type. I would just say that, that's really important to us and our staff is just being genuine and being consistent. You know, it's really important that first off, you got to be yourself. You're around these athletes, these coaches too often to fake it. Okay, so be yourself, but at the same time, be the same person every single day. That's something that I've kind of learned through my years. You've probably learned the same thing. We as leaders and as coaches that these kids look up to, we can't have ups and downs. We have to be level headed. We have to be the same person every single day because these kids have so many, they've got other stuff going on in their lives besides the weight room or the field or practice. They've got class, they've got relationships, they've got study hall, they've got this, that, and the other, where there's a lot of different variables, a lot of ups and downs. We have to be a constant for them. So I would say that's really important for our interns as well, to be the same person every single day. I would also say if we can get some kids that are outgoing and not afraid to coach, that's the ideal situation. You're shaking your head. You know what I'm talking about. We're going to give our interns the details they need. They are going to know right from wrong in our program. There's not going to be gray areas. So little things like if you see something wrong, fix it. If you see a kid with toes over the line, toes over the line is a no-no. Don't see it and, be quiet about it. Speak up, fix it. Don't be afraid. And that's going to come with being around the guys, being around us as a staff. But, once that first week or two is out of the way, come out of your shell, be yourself, and be consistent.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And so, something that I speak to many of our young coaches about as well is like, you don't have to emulate being me, or you don't have to emulate being another person on staff. And then just like you said, like be yourself, be true to who you are, because these young guys and girls in our programs, they're gonna figure you out real quick if you're pretending to be somebody you're not. So be genuine about it. And at the same time, you don't have to be like the bad cop. Like we're gonna play the bad cop. We have the rapport and the trust and relationship with an athlete to have a hard conversation with them, whether it's as an individual or in front of their teammates. But they don't have to be that. They just have to be that, that consistent person who can add value, and the athlete understands that they are trying to add value to them. But yeah, 100%. No, I love that. I love that. And I think as much as possible, just like you said, they got to be outgoing. They got to be willing to make mistakes. We always look for intern coaches that are maybe a little different than ourselves, that bring a different perspective. But it's always a bit of a balancing act, isn't it? Because obviously you want to have some kind of synergy within the team so that everyone is moving in the right direction. You don't have we're all here and this other person is a different kind of person altogether out here and distracting from the program. But as long as we can bring those things, corral them together to kind of elevate what we're doing, I think that's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, and that's another point. As part of our kind of orientation, our onboarding process, I kind of give our interns, I guess you could call it a script of common things, common language that we use as coaches in this program that our athletes respond to, so that our guys know, we want these interns to speak the same language as us, so to speak. Um, that way, it's a little bit easier for the athlete to understand where they're coming from and listen to them really.
I love that. Yeah, giving them the strategies, giving them the tools to have that confidence, like immediately from the get-go. I think those first 1 or 2 weeks really sets our young coaches up to step over that line and to start moving forward into growth, rather than kind of regressing into a position whereby they think, I don't know what to say and I'm not going to say it, rather than I don't know what to say, but I'm going to give it a shot. And if I get it wrong, I'll take it on the chin and move on.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where we need to get them to. Well, hey, Coach Miller, this has been awesome. Really appreciate your time. And obviously, if anyone has any other questions about the internship with Wyoming Football, they can feel free to reach out to Coach Miller. And also all the other information about this internship and developmental opportunity is on this very page at My Momentum Connect with Wyoming Football. So feel free to read through. And if you want to apply to the roles for the upcoming year, the spring, the summer, and then into next fall, then the application material requirements are at the bottom of the page as well. So Coach Miller, again, thank you for your time, and we'll catch up soon.
Awesome. Appreciate you, Coach.
Thank you.